Clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. Clap your hands twice if you can hear my voice. Nice, that was 3 times Danny. Okay, so that's the foundation of HTML. Okay, I noticed there's a lot of questions around like which tags and things to look at, right? So you want to try to just use the tag that sounds the most like what you're doing, right? So you can look those up. You'll definitely see a lot of divs out there, but that's not necessarily like the best practice. Okay. Okay. So today we're going to learn about how to incorporate JavaScript into this a little bit. Yeah. So we can write our JavaScript in something called a script tag. So what does a script tag look like? Well, it's a script, and it's typically placed inside of the head of the document. Okay? So let's see what this looks like. We're going to see a few different things. So first thing that we'll make like an annoying ad on this website, which is we can write alert. Right? You can also write window.alert. Alert is on the window. What do I mean when I say that? This whole thing is called the DOM, right? All of this is the document. Document object model. So this is called the DOM. Okay? All of it. And so there are things we can do with the DOM. Because there's the browser of Chrome and all your browsers, right? They have this ability to run JavaScript. And anything on the most outside level is called the window. So there's this window, and then there's the document inside of that, and then we see there's HTML, and then there's head and body, and it keeps going so on and so forth into more and more nested elements, yeah? So the window is the most outside thing, which is like when we called functions function style. You might have heard me say that this is the window. Remember, that's where we had like that set timeout, that set interval. We didn't have to say anything. They were just built in, but we weren't calling them on anything. They were just on the window, right? So that is essentially what this is, right? Which is this console here. I wonder what happens if I type in window. If I type in window, we can actually see the window. Right? The window is an object, and it's got all of this stuff on it here. So let's slide this up. Right? So this is where we have everything that's like these built-in things that just exist on the window. Clear timeout, you probably recognize that one. These are all these different functions and whatnot. You don't really need to like learn this. You need to learn like that it exists, but you're definitely not going to learn everything on here. Fetch, this is something we'll be using a lot. That's pretty cool. Get excited about that one. Local storage is something you can add to keep. We saw storage inside of, I think, memory, or no? Where was it? Well, maybe application. Right? Storage, local storage is here. So this is inside of the console of the developer tools, right? So we have our elements tab and our console tab. Okay? And so this works just like a regular node kind of thing. It can interpret JavaScript. So in here, I can just write alert, because alert does exist on here, on the window. And so I can say, you're about to enter a dangerous site. Right? And we all seen these kind of alerts, right? This happens, we refresh the page, and it gives us this annoying, and you're like, oh, okay. Because there's no option, right? That's an alert. It happens once, you click it, you continue on. Yeah? So, something to note is when I refresh, you can see There's nothing on the page. Right? We just see the alert. The page is empty. Does anybody know why? Deja.
It runs before everything else. It's the first thing you get.
Excellent. Why is the highlighting of this wrong? No, everything's fine. Oh, it's just because it's JavaScript now inside of here. That's annoying. Don't worry, we won't deal with that for too long. Okay. So JavaScript, or what the browser interprets this HTML, right, and it adds all these tags to the screen, and it goes from the very top to the bottom. And so the first thing it would see is my title, which we'll see the title is still here, the Corey story, right? Great name. This title is still here, but we can't see any of this other stuff because it hasn't had an option to run. When it goes inside of the script tag, it runs everything inside of that file, that JavaScript file. Okay, and that is a synchronous thing. This happens one thing, then the next thing, then the next thing. It's like a clock, right? It happens in chronological order. Synchronous. Syn means, Chronos means time, syn means together, right? So synchronous means together in time. Okay, so that's the alert. So one way I can move this, and sometimes this will work, is I know I said that script tags are generally in the head, and they are. Don't forget that. But I'm just showing you an alternative for right now. We can move it to the very bottom of the body. Right? This is now the last line in the body. So I'm saying I want all of the HTML to load first, and then I want us to run the JavaScript. Okay, so if we go back here, we'll have to click onto this, and we will refresh. Well, for some reason, it's still freezing it. Celine, you know why? John? Either of you know why? Either of you know why that's... I don't know. So this is a good opportunity to teach something else. Debugger. Okay, hang on. Let's see what happens. Okay, so this is the next thing I want to teach us about anyway. It's called Debugger. This is your new best friend. All right, so you can go ahead, get on your phone, text your current best friend that they're done. Right? They are now your second best friend, or just a friend, really, right? Your new best friend, though, is Debugger. So welcome to the debug, right? Favorite flavor? Ants. Everybody loves Ants ice cream, and everybody loves Debugger. Okay? Call back. Okay, so Debugger is really cool, and I'll show you why more in a second. But it freezes the code at this specific line. So let's go back up to the top for a moment. I'm just going to copy this and comment this all out. And we're going to put the script tag back at the top, because I think this is going to better demonstrate my point. Okay, so we've got this script tag. The alert is commented out because the alert's not working the way I want it to right now, and we just have this debugger, right? Okay. So I refresh the page, and we hit debugger, and we see that nothing is loaded on the screen yet, except for contact me, which is kind of peculiar. But nothing else, right? It's frozen in time. However, if we do it, I'm going to comment that one back out, and we go back down to the bottom of our page. We'll see that this time the debugger will have everything on the screen already, right? So it is reading in order. I don't know why the alert's doing that. Sometimes I've noticed that happens with specifically alert, but that's why I remembered to use debugger instead. Questions so far?
What was it supposed to do? Why while it was at the top.
What has not show any of the text, and it did do that. Oh, but instead, now we've moved it to the bottom, and we see the text is already there, exists. Yeah.
Could it be just a possible, I'm sorry, to go back and bubble part, but could it be just like Google correcting you by like just forcing that action?
I'm not sure.
Oh,
I don't want us to get too hot and bothered by that. Okay, so we've got this alert. So for now, I'm just going to put a freeze on the debugger. I don't want us to think about it quite yet. So alert's not so helpful. So instead, let's learn about prompt. Prompt is also something that's on the window. And this is like those sketchy sites still, which is like enter your age to continue. Right? Very sketchy site. We're going to refresh our page here. And it's not happening. Interesting. Oh, it needs to be in quotes, yeah. My mistake. Oh, enter your age to continue. No problem. I'm 100. And I can enter and I can continue on to seeing the content of the website, yeah? So when we use prompt, this is something, personally, in your life, you won't use prompt very much. Just basically using it today in your lab. But in real life, you'll get input from users in different ways because prompt is sketch sites, yeah? And Selena's texted me that the alert thing is a Chrome behavior thing. It would work correctly, perhaps on other browser engines. So I can set this to have a variable, right? So I could say let user age, and I can assign it to whatever I get back from this prompt. Okay, and then I'm going to console.log user age, and I'm just going to do it plus 50, just so we can see something. Okay? So we're going to go here. We're going to enter our age, 100. I hit enter. And now our console has this, well, it has 10,050. Anybody know why? Yeah? Sorry?
When you're typing in your age, that's treated as a string.
Yeah, right? It came back as a string. So, not such a big deal. I can convert it to a number pretty easily. So we get more of our expected result. I'll do 100, enter. This time our console prints out 150. So we're able to take a user input and actually print something into the console of a screen. Might not feel huge, but it's pretty cool. Maybe you're starting to think of how we could be setting up our Hangman game to like be using stuff, right? Could definitely have some kind of prompt loop. Okay, so I'm going to show us Debugger, our new best friend, a little. So if I save Debugger, singular, yeah, and I run this, we're going to put in 100, enter, enter, and we see that nothing is actually we get frozen on this line of code. The console, nothing is printed yet, right? So even though this is the next line, it happens after the debugger. So we haven't hit this line of code yet. So what does that mean? Well, it means we can take a look and see the current state of everything that's going on. So right now, I have a user age variable, right? I can look at that and see like, oh, right now it's the string of 100. Right? I can also look at our document. Our document is this whole HTML thing, starting a document, right? This will become something much more helpful a little bit later, but not quite yet. Let's see how far I should go with this. Any questions so far? Okay, so what time is it? 12? I'm gonna go a little bit deeper. So I really hate writing JavaScript code in an HTML file. So it's not actually in this specific lesson, but it's going to be added right now because it's really crummy. So instead of that, we're going to add our new file. Oh, no, that's the folder. I'm just going to call it index.js. And I'm going to go ahead and take all of this code from inside of here. I'm going to cut it. Also going to delete the script tag here. And I'm just going to paste this in our index.js file. Feels like home, right? And we can see that I can still run this, right? I can still run like node at index.js. And, well, it's going to throw an error because of the debugger. Debugger is something also from the prompt. Well, prompt is not built into the node environment either, right? So this code is slightly different because it needs to be going through the browser. So we don't need to run the node here. But I just wanted to like prove that you could, but you'll have to just take my word for it at the moment. And instead we'll go back to our index.html. And we're going to add the script tag back in the head because that's really where it belongs. And there's a couple different ways to do this. We're just going to learn one way for now. Oh god, I'll just start from scratch. Okay, so the script tag also can take a source, src, right? What's that familiar to? Image, right? So what do we think might go in the source? The what? Relative path, Kelvin says, right? Those are the wording. That's the words. All right? Those are the magic words, that and Baba Booey. And so we're going to say /index.js. Whoops. And we can go back. And we get this, enter your age, and I'll say 100. And we hit our debugger, which is kind of interesting. We still have our document. I think so. If I could spell document. I can't spell though. Right? And we still have our user age. It's a string right now. And if I go ahead and continue, I can do this by clicking on this blue dot. This step means to like go to the next line within the function. But for now, I'm just going to hit the blue dot. This means just continue. So we'll go to either the next debugger or to the end if there's nothing left. I'll continue, and then we'll print our 150 to the screen. So some of you may have noticed again that like nothing was printed to the background because we're back to putting it in the head. So there's a few different ways to get around this. What do you guys prefer? Celine and John? The event listener or just async in the script? Okay. We'll do that for this time. All right, so what? Okay, so this is what you're not going to totally understand what this is at the moment, but that's okay. All right, but please follow along. So document, we know what document is, right? Because we've seen it now a few times. It's that whole HTML document. We can do something called adding an event listener. This is essentially tells your browser, hey, I want to listen for something to happen. And when that thing happens, I'm going to go do something else. That's all that means. So it's like when I listen for my stomach to growl, and when it growls, I know I'm hungry. Right? So there's like an event listener to my stomach for the growl. Right? So just like that, for document, we can add an event listener. So we say document.add event listener. Pretty good naming, right? This is a method on document, so I need to invoke it. And it takes in two arguments. The first argument is it takes in as a string the event that it is listening for. So sometimes this is click, sometimes this is change, sometimes this is submit, but since we're going to wrap the whole thing in this, the whole document, we're going to call it DOM, as in the document object model, content loaded. So that way it's going to wait for all of the content on the HTML page to load first. So that's spelled like this, DOM, content loaded. Okay, still with me? And so when the content loads, so when this event happens, we are allowed to fire a function, right? This is the callback function. So this is going to be an anonymous function. So I'm just going to do an arrow like that. And I'm just going to put the rest of my code inside of it. So everything is going to be wrapped in this event listener, because I don't want to run any JavaScript until all the HTML has loaded onto the page. We'll see more reasons for that in a little bit. Yes, Sim. Where are we talking? This right here. Yeah? Yeah, right? So everything is wrapped in this. This is pretty common practice. There's another way. Maybe we'll see it in a bit, or maybe we won't. So now I'll save. We'll go check it out. We'll run it. Well, this is like a weird Chrome issue. The content should be loaded right now. The content probably is loaded too. And I can prove it. Ready for the next thing to learn? Yeah, Rob?
The line one where it says do you want content loaded, I believe it should be a semicolon instead of a comma.
Okay. It's not. So, but nice try. Okay. So this is like a weird prompt thing. So we can use prompts and whatnot, but we also have this whole HTML document. And we talked a little bit about IDs earlier, right? We said like we could like get information from something. So in my Corey Ladovsky's page, I have this ID called top, right? This was the top of the page. And inside of this tag, I have my name, Corey Ladovsky's page, right? Okay. So right now in our JavaScript file, we just have this debugger, and so we're gonna get to play around with it. So I'm gonna refresh the page. We hit our console log, and we're gonna do something called a query selector. So we're gonna say document dot query selector. So it's going to say on the document, we're going to go query for some specific or thing that we want to select. This is the popular one now. There's another one called get element by ID. That's older, which is what I think is in the GitHub for this specific lesson. So if you see it in the lab, you'll know that they're doing the same thing. And then in here, I'm going to grab this with the octothorpe. In the get element by ID, you don't. And then I'm going to say top. And we'll see that I am selecting this H1. Right, so I can set this to a variable. I could say let top equal to this document.query selector. So now I have this top. And I'm actually, well, why is it showing this? Top dot inner text. Interesting. That's weird, right? Because this definitely showed that we had it. just might be complaining about the variable use. All right. Hang on. Ignore that. If I paste it, we can see that we do have this h1, right? And I can click to add things onto it. I can say that inner text, and it shows that this inner text is Corey Ledowski's page. You can also change it to like hello world. I think I can do that from here, right? And we can see that it just changed on the document to hello world. So I can do this because the document is already loaded, which is, I'm proving that here. So I'm going to prove it a different way now. So I'm going to comment out our loader. So now it's going to run at the very beginning. Going to refresh page. It hits this. And when I do top, we see there is no top element yet. I've seen a lot of lost spaces. What part is tripping us up here? So let's recap. Let's just go back a little. So I'm showing the difference between having this event listener, where we're listening for the content to be loaded, versus not having the event listener. So in this example, there is no event listener. It just links right to our JavaScript page, and we hit this debugger. With the debugger, we have access to everything that's currently on the page, as well as anything we've declared up to this point within our JavaScript. Right? It's like putting a freeze and letting us go into like this vortex kind of thing. And so we can see that right now there is no document.querySelector top. It doesn't exist. And it doesn't exist because the script tag is in the head, and we're not waiting for the content to load. So the website goes like this. It goes, okay, building this, it's built this, it builds this, hits this, it throws the debugger. Because it runs all of this file. And so we haven't even gone to the body. We haven't gone to the H1 with the top ID. All right, so that's what the point of that demonstration is. But if instead we do keep the event listener in here, and we try it again, we'll see that now we... Oh, I'm missing this thing. We'll see that now we actually have this H1 element. Yeah.
So the event listener is waiting for the script.
For the DOM content to load. The DOM is all of that HTML. That's the document object model. Right? It's all of this stuff in the HTML. This is called the DOM. So it's saying until all of this content has been loaded, don't fire this callback function, which currently does nothing except for call debugger. Anyway, so with this, we're allowed to go back to writing just regular code inside of our function. I think there's an alert prompt. Is there a way to just have it print? Right, so I could do another alert instead of a console log here. I could do alert, and I could say, your age plus 50 is right, so now we have some like back and forth action a little bit. Let's see it. We'll run it. It says, okay, you're about to enter a dangerous site. Awesome. Enter your age. I'm 7. And it says your age plus 50 is 750. All right, it's still doing it as a string for some reason. That's because this concatenation is happening first. So I can wrap these. So I can wrap these, and then we'll get our expected result. Right? It will read from left to right. So 7. Okay. 57. Great. Perfect age. Is it prime? I don't know. I think so. But you see, you could totally write a function in here. Right? We could write code in here. We could say const is prime. That takes in a number. Right? And then what's the first thing we had in is prime? What was it? If num is less than 2, what did we return? False, right? Come on, we did this already. We should remember it. If not, we haven't done it enough times since then. What was the next check we did? We said if num is equal to 2, return true. What was the next thing? Okay, we said for let I equal to 2. And we said while I is what? Less than what? Num divided by 2. And what did we do with I with each step? Okay, and then what did we check? If what? Modulo I, what happens? If that equals 0, what do we know? Okay, and if it makes it all the way through the for loop, what do we know? Okay, all right, we should be able to bang these out. All right, so this is kind of fun. So now we have this is prime. Okay, and so instead, let's say, let's take our user age that we have, and we'll say number of user age, and we'll call is prime on. So we can say, hey, if, because all this code is going to run, this is like regular JavaScript. So if this is a prime number, we can make an alert that says your age is prime. Else, we can make an alert that says keep trying and getting older. Right? Let's try it. Right, so this is the kind of stuff you'll be doing on your lab today. So that's why I really took Henry's intro to heart. Right, so it says enter your age to continue. Okay, so we know 13 is a prime number. So I'm going to go ahead and say okay, and it's going to say your age is prime. Cool. I'm going to refresh the page. Let's try again. We'll say, let's say my age is 25. And we say okay, and we'll say keep trying and getting old. Right, so maybe when they hit 29 or something. Maybe. Any questions on that? Right? So our JavaScript file is still very much a JavaScript file. We can create functions, we can call functions, we can do things, we can interact with the user in some way. Let's see a different example. Let's get rid of these prompts for now. And get rid of this for now. So let's pretend that instead I have a change the name. Okay? So I'm going to say, I'll throw in a prompt. Says, what would you like your new name to be? right? And I'm going to call this new name. I'm going to save the result. So the goal is this. The goal is where it says Corey Ledovsky's page, it's going to make it say the new name instead. Okay? So they're going to type something in. We're going to take their input. Then we're going to go grab the element off the page and update the inner text to be equal to the new name. Okay? Let's try it. You try it. Okay? All right, so over the next 15 minutes, work on this. So the goal is, I'll write it, right? You're partway there. Change the name at the top to be the new name, right? So you might have to check the GitHub. You might try to look it up a little bit, and then we'll go over it, okay? So you've seen me do some stuff. You do this one, and then we'll come back to Hey, Celine. All right, clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. Nice. Clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. All right, that is the signal. Okay. How do we do on this one? Yes, no, maybe so. Okay. All over the map a bit. So we've got access to our new name right here, right? And so if we need to grab a specific element from the document, how do we do that? Right, so there's two ways that we quickly talked about. Does someone remember one of the ways? Yeah, what was the selector? What was it called? Query selector was one. What was the other one? Get element by ID, right? So let's look at those. So here I'm going to say let, I'll call it header for now, and I'm going to say document dot get element by ID. I'm going to show us the old way first. We saw that my ID was top, right? So don't just write top blindly unless that's the ID of yours. If you do, and that isn't your ID of yours, it's not going to work. And let's go ahead and get the other one too. I'll say header 2. And this is document dot query selector. So this is what is common now. And we say it's an octothorpe because we're grabbing an ID. So that's top. So you can see the difference of those two. Doesn't seem too major. Query selector is the nicest selector because we're able to select other things besides just things with an ID. You can grab things by class and the whole element by just the overall element name. And you can do more things with it. While get element by ID is just get the element by the ID. Might be slightly easy to remember, but they're both only like 1-2 words. So okay, and then I'm going to throw in a debugger just so we see what we have at the moment. So we're going to go back to our website, which is the wrong way every way. I want my new name to be Lil Mama, because that is the name I go by. And we can see here what our current variables are, right? This is another thing that the debugger just kind of shows us inside of sources. It shows us where our code is frozen, but it also shows us what we have. We have header, which is this h1 top. It tells us which properties it has on it. Oops. And so does our header 2. It's all over the place. It's not me doing that. But we can also look at it in the console if I wanted to play around with it. So instead of this old, I can say header, and I can see that header is this element that I have. And I can go ahead and hit enter, and I see, oh, this is literally what I have. So how do I change the inner text of an element? Well, I can assign it. So I can say inner text, and I can reassign it to whatever I want. So maybe I want it to be the new name. And I go, oh, okay, Lil Mama. And it did change it. So this looks like pretty good code to me. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy it because I know it's going to work because I tested it already in my console. I'll go back to my code. I'm going to remove my debugger because I finished using it. I'm going to print out header text is equal to new name. I'm going to save it, and then I'm just going to run it up here, where we say, what would your new name be? Lil Mama, enter, and it shows up as Lil Mama. Cool, right? And it can be anything. I haven't tricked it to do Lil Mama. I can also do Big Papa if my wife is working on it. Right? Boom. So we've got it working. Questions?
You should have one more time.
Which part?
The code.
Sure. So all I did there was I threw in this debugger. Debugger goes on its own line. It is your new best friend. It's not so helpful yet, you'll see, but it becomes so helpful, right? It starts off like every relationship, just small, right? This is a cup of coffee, right? Next time, maybe we go get a meal. Right, so we haven't hit the debugger yet. I write something in here. I write, what's one of my nicknames? Korsky. Okay, enter. And now we're hit our debugger. And inside our debugger, we can see the variables that we have available to us. We can actually see all over the place. We can scroll around inside of the code. We see codes commented out. We can see is prime, is this function that takes in, right? This is another variable. Is prime is just a variable that is attached to an anonymous function. So, okay, that's cool. And in my console, I can play around with things as well. So I can look at new name. And be like, okay, I've got Korsky. I could still do things to it. Like maybe I was curious about its length. I could go, oh, okay, that's how I would get its length. And I also know that I have that variable header, right? I also have a header too. And I can see, like, this is literally this element. I have selected with my query this exact element. I can do anything I want with this element. I can say dot inner text. I can see what the inner text is. I can see what the inner HTML is. There isn't really any just that. I can add things to it. Right? I could set it so inner HTML is going to be, and I can make this like some kind of, if I want to make it bold. I can say new name. Right? So now I can hit enter, and we'll see it updated it. Maybe it's a bold, I don't know if you can tell. But I guess it was already kind of in bold, right? But anyway, I can use the console to figure out exactly what I'm going to write. And so then I can go back to my code and I can just write what I found in the console. And then I remove my debugger because I'm done using that one. Okay? Don't just leave them in there, right? You use it, you then lose it. Okay? Questions? Yes, Shia?
If it's not running,
If what's not running?
it's not changing the name for me.
Then there's something wrong with your code. I can look at that individually. Any other questions? Great. So I think Celine has posted the pairs for today. We will be working on the DOM lab. And that's it. That's like, it's just going to be a bunch of this kind of stuff and still incorporate